Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of Intuitive Angling. And man, I really appreciate you guys coming by to watch the video and hang out with me for a little bit. Really appreciate it. And guys, you're going to be glad that you came by for this video by the end of if you watch the entire thing, because I'm fixing to give you guys one of the best old core hogging, bass fishing hogging tricks, tips that you've ever seen before, that was taught to me by one of the greatest all-time spinnerbait and flippers of all time, Basil Bacon. Now, if you don't know who Basil Bacon is, you don't know much about bass fishing, because he's a legend here in the Ozarks. He's a bass fishing Hall of Famer, won a bunch of tournaments, legend in the sport from the 70s, almost won the Classic a couple times. And Basil showed me this technique years ago that I'm going to share with y'all today in the video. I think you guys are really going to like it. And also, speaking about some old hardcore hogging tips, I just want to let you guys know that my new Blaukat throwback jig is back in stock at Tackle Warehouse. We sold out on them 2 weeks ago, the first day they dropped, and they're slowly getting back in. And I don't know why I'm giving you this tip, because it's going to be one I'm going to be using this fall myself. If I can give you one tip, guys, if you go to my Tackle Warehouse link and you order some of the jigs, get you some of these green with chartreuse and put you a green pumpkin frog on it. Guys, I'm telling you right there, that is freaking money in the fall time of the year. You will get bid on that thing. I'll be throwing it a bunch over the next 2 months. So Tackle Warehouse link in the description there. Okay guys, Basil Bacon, man, I love Basil. Basil's got to be close to 90 years old now. He actually lives here in Springfield, Missouri, where I live. That's where he's from. I've known Basil forever. He used to work for Ranger Boats back in the early days, and I've been following him forever. He was one of the pioneers in flipping. But one of Basil's claim to fame, and he won a couple tournaments doing this, is waking a big hubcap spinnerbait. This is what we call the hubcap spinnerbait around here, which is a big number 7 or number 8 Colorado blade. And there's a couple different variations. Sometimes you can use like a tandem setup like this, or the single, based upon the situation. And the technique that I want to share with you guys is what Basil taught me about. This is a fall time technique, primarily like October and November. This is going to work good. And this is sort of a lost art. If you were an old timer here in Missouri and you fished during the 70s and early 80s, you guys know exactly what I'm talking about here, but it sort of fell by the wayside. But when the conditions are right, you can't beat it. So the setup you need to use for this, guys, there's 2 different ones. The first one is like a big single spin, like a number 8 Colorado here, usually like a 3/4 ounce or 1/2 ounce spinnerbait, or some type of a tandem with a little bit smaller blades, depending upon what you're trying to do. And this green and chartreuse skirt's a really good color. But the main thing, this involves waking these hubcap spinnerbaits over deeper water, or close to deep water. Now, what you want to look for here, I'll talk a little bit about, well, let me talk about the technique first, and then we'll get into the areas. You guys have heard me talk about burning a spinnerbait, and traditionally burning a spinnerbait, you've heard me talk on the channel, it's done with smaller willow leaf blade spinnerbaits like that Megabass SV3 that you can just burn fast across the surface. But these big wagon spinnerbaits, these big hubcap spinnerbaits, you can't burn them as fast, because they have so much torque behind them that you simply can't reel them fast, or they're going to roll onto their side. But you can still reel them fast enough to keep them just underneath the water. And when you reel these big bladed spinnerbaits just underneath the water really boils behind them. It really displaces a lot of water. And guys, this will pull big fish up out of deeper water, in the cleaner water especially. Now, both of these techniques, whether you use the single spin or the tandem spin, it just depends on the mood and the personality of the fish. You can reel the tandem spin a little bit faster, so I prefer a tandem spin if the water is really clear, because I can fish it faster. And then the big single spin if the water has just a little bit of color in it, where I don't want to reel it quite as fast, but I still want to keep it high, I'll use the single spin, because you don't have to reel this thing very high to keep it up high in the water column. These big blades naturally lift the bait, so you can still fish it with like a medium fast retrieve and still keep it just under the surface. But you want to wake the spinnerbait with it. You want to keep the spinnerbait just a couple inches under the surface without breaking the blade, just like we talked about with the burning spinnerbaits with the little willy blades. And that's when they're going to hit it the best. Now, this is a very situational bait. And to me, this technique is all about fall time. I haven't caught hardly nothing on it any time in the fall time. But when you get into October and November, and you start to have water temperatures right around that 60-degree mark, anywhere between, say, like maybe 57 to 62, usually depending upon what part of the country you're in, that's mid-October to end November. Water temperature is key, and then you have to combine that with the right water clarity. You really need to have at least 3 foot of visibility, and ideally I prefer water visibility of 4 to 8 foot for this technique. So you got to have water temperature around 60 degrees, 5 foot of visibility is perfect, and you've got to have clouds, wind, or shade. That's the whole key on this thing. So ideally, all that together, the best days for this is say if you're out on the first part of November, water temperature is 57 degrees, it's cloudy, it's windy, you get on some shady banks. This is money for this technique. You will catch some big ones under that. So what I'm looking for with this is there's 2 different techniques. For the tandem spin like this, and guys, also I'll link a couple spinnerbait options in my tackle warehouse link too, if you guys want to get set up on some of this. But for the tandem spin like this, most of the time I'm burning it around some type of steeper bank. My favorite is bluffs and bluff points. So I'll get on a bluff bank or tied against a bluff point, and I'll throw that spinnerbait right against the bank and just burn it off the bank. And those big fish will come out of 2 to 10 foot of water and inhale this thing, especially if you got some wind and clouds. And if the water's a little bit more off colored, like around that 3 to 3.5 foot of visibility, I like to burn this single spin next to any type of shallow cover. It could be around a lay down log, it could be a stump, it could be a dock, edge of a grass bed, anything like that, standing timber. But the single spin seems to work better burning it around some type of shallow cover. But guys, this is one of the most exciting ways to catch them, because when they bite this thing, that bait is so close to the surface, it's just like a topwater strike. You see the fish hit it, and you'll see the boil behind of it. And also another really good technique to fish this around is on riprap banks. Perfect situation, get out there in the morning, like 7, 8 o'clock in the morning where the sun is still at a low angle, get on any type of riprap bank, on a bridge, dam, or whatever, and make a long cast parallel down those rocks on the riprap, burn and wake that big bladed spinnerbait down it, and it's a really good way to catch them. But people don't do this much anymore. This is an Ozark staple, man, and when you find the right situation for it, you can catch some big fish, and you can win tournaments, dude. I mean, it'll catch 20, 25 pound bags. But anyway, that's the setup, guys. A little bit different than the ripping spinnerbait. This is the bulging spinnerbait, with the big hubcap blades. Truly an old school technique. This is probably as old school as you're gonna get, unless you start getting back into like the Bombers and Lazy Ikes and Rebel Minnows and stuff like that. But it's been a big deal around here, the Ozarks. So something else to add to your repertoire fishing. Hope it helps out, and we'll talk later.